What is up, Internet? We're back. We're gonna do some more grinding here on Titan Quest. We're gonna leave back where we left off. I do want to add, Will Keller is going to be going live tonight at 9 p.m. If you're in the Midwest area, 9 p.m. like we're in Indiana. 9 p.m. over here. Be sure to check that out. We'll put a link to that in the description of these videos today. And I hope you enjoy. Let's get it. Let's get some knowledge.
And that's one of the things about religion that we have to remember when we're talking about that makes it such a hot topic issue is because we're talking about law. Who gets to be God? Who gets to be God's deputies? Who is the Most High? Who is the divine authority? It's all about the claim to the Most High. The only way that somebody can be higher than us is if we give away our power. Because there's nobody, we're all equal. But we're not equal in our knowledge, so ultimately I think it does have to be a hierarchy, but it has to be a cooperative hierarchy like a bee colony. It's about what our value system is, what we care about.
Hello, Hive Mind. Today is Wednesday, March 11th, 2020. I am your host, Nate Cap, and joining me over the airways is co-host Brandon Martin. Welcome to the second CubbyWhole podcast, where important topics are unveiled, discussed, and tested. Our website is CubbyWhole.com. That's CubbyWhole.com. On this show, we will be talking about the trivium and quadrivium and how that is used, those methodologies are used as truth discovery methods. Of course, we're going to get into truth as well. But before we go any further, the Seed 4 Growth Conference is this May the 29th through the 31st. It's a 2-day conference about the occult, esotericism, freedom, history, philosophy, symbolism, and natural law. Featured guests include Sean McCann, Nathan Riddett, myself, Nate Cap, Dylan McCormick, Brandon Martin, Douglas Martin, Mark Devlin, Mark Passio, and many more. For tickets, please visit eventbrite.com. That is eventbrite.com. And it's $85 per ticket. So it's a really, really great deal. And it's definitely, this event is going to be beyond epic. There's so many great speakers, as I just named off, and you are definitely going to be in for a major treat as far as how much knowledge, important knowledge, is going to be presented at this conference. So please go get your ticket if you haven't already. Brandon is going to go ahead and give the update. So go ahead, Brandon.
Thank you, Nate, for bringing me back on the show as the co-host. And I'm super excited to work on this with you and get more content out there about truth and about, kind of ending the current iniquities and inequities that are going on in our world by spreading significant knowledge that people need to actually make a proactive approach to manifesting a better result. As far as an update towards the event, you pretty much hit everything, square on the head. And the only updates that I would say is that I want to emphasize on the actual hotel for people. And the hotel is going to be Fairfield Inn by Marriott, which is pretty close to the actual location. And for other options for lodging and things like that, they can just go to the Eventbrite page. There are some other options on there for people, and they can choose at their own discretion what they would like. But other than that, most people will probably be flying in to Columbus if you're taking a flight in, which means you'll have to take a bus from Columbus down to Athens. But all that information will be on the website, so everything will be really simple. There will be there will be a list of vegan places to eat for people as well. And I will make sure to have a map laid out of the actual the campus and Athens itself, so people know like where they're going and everything like that. Other than that, I'm really excited to be putting this conference on and looking forward to all the speakers and all the information they will be bringing. And I'm super excited to also be putting it at a university. I haven't seen a conference at a university, so that's something I feel that is very important to kind of hammer on, is that this is taking place in an academic environment, so it is about learning. It's a sanctuary for learning. So yeah, that's all I got to say about the update.
Awesome. So last week's show, we talked about the trivium and how it's a truth discovery method, which is about understanding grammar, logic, and rhetoric, and then understanding how that's the classical way of the trivium. Then we got into the esoteric version, which is knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. And then the modern understanding of the trivium is input, processing, and output. And today we're going to talk about how the trivium and the quadrivium work in conjunction with each other in order to find truth. So before I hand it off to Brandon, it's important to understand that the four major parts of the quadrivium are the arithmetic, which is the first one. The second one is geometry. And then the third is music. And then you have cosmology, or astronomy. So Brandon is going to break that down and let us know how both of those work together, both of those methodologies work together, and help us understand how to find truth, and how both of these methodologies are very important when trying to discover truth and to understand science.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I mean, what you said was, pretty on par with what I would be stating. There was a couple things I wanted to kind of add to my last explanation of the trivium. But obviously, just to kind of reiterate over the trivium is grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the esoteric version of that is knowledge, understanding, wisdom. And then we can look at it in a modern way, which is input, processing, output. And then, like you said, you can take in the other aspects of consciousness, which is thought, emotions, and actions, and correlate it to that. But what I do see as a negative thing, like in modern academic realms and methodologies, a lot of times you'll see the logic put before the rhetoric, or even grammar before logic. You'll see these mixed up. And one thing I didn't hammer on last time is that these go in order. They have to go grammar, logic, rhetoric. If you take them out of order, then you're going to be mixing up the way things are done. It's like going from input to output without doing the processing. Processing comes after the output, which doesn't make any sense. So, imagine trying to understand something before you had the knowledge of it, and then applying that. It just doesn't work out. So you can't really mix these up in any way. And that goes for the quadrivium as well. So I just wanted to really, hammer on that fact that you will find in different academic realms and also esoteric teachings and esoteric, manuscripts and things like that, that they will mix up the grammar, logic, rhetoric. So just be aware of that and be conscious of that, and try to, understand why that's taking place, and then make sure to use the proper methodology for the trivium to actually come to that understanding of the truth about that. Now, as far as the quadrivium, well, the quadrivium means 4 roads. So the trivium means 3 roads, and the quadrivium is from the Latin word quator, which is 4, and then via, which is way, path, or road. So it's the fourfold or 4 pathway to truth, which, you can take that to Eastern traditions and things like that. And the Buddhist traditions, they have the 4 and the 8 pathway to truth. And there's some other places you can correlate that to. But I just wanted to, explain what the etymological roots of that word is. And it means the 4 pathway. So this is about the 7 pathways to truth. When you combine the 3 and the 4 together, you get 7. So the trivium and quadrivium being put together, you have the 7 pathways to truth. And obviously 7 is a very sacred number, and we will be explaining the 7 in very, in depth in the future, very soon, I hope. Now, I will go over the basic 4 quadrivium methodologies here, which you kind of already laid out. And these go in order, like I said before, which is arithmetic, which is the study of quantity involving the combination of numbers through addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And just to add in a little bit of esoteric knowledge here, this can be related to the alchemical element of air, because it's about intellect. It's about, using the base knowledge of intellect to come to an understanding of these constructs and abstractions within numerology and things like that. And then from that, you go into geometry, and this is a branch of mathematics concerned with shape, size, relative position, and the properties of space. So it's arithmetic of space, pretty much. So geometry is arithmetic, but extended or extracted into another form. And we're taking the arithmetic and then we're applying it to actual things within space, so there's not just about constructs and abstractions anymore. We're using this to actually look at what we see in nature, and also maybe even archetypal forms within ourselves, or metaphysical forms, platonic forms, things like that, and trying to figure out the actual metric of these shapes and things like that, which relates back to Earth. So the alchemical sign of Earth, or symbol of Earth, would be utilized here. Obviously, geo means, Earth or plane, and, metry is metric. So that's where we get that from. Now, from that, we can go into music, which is a more advanced form. Now, a lot of people would be like, oh, you can play music without understanding arithmetic and geometry. Well, I personally am a guitar player and a piano player, and no, I would not be able to play music. I wouldn't be able to count rhythm. I wouldn't be able to count beats. I wouldn't be able to understand the shapes and composition that needs to go in with music and things like this. So music is directly, you can't have music without arithmetic and geometry. There is just no way. It just doesn't work out that way. But music is an art form which employs vibration, rhythm, dynamics, and interplay between sound and silence as a medium for expression. So this is also another form of arithmetic, which is the arithmetic of time. So this is all about timing and things like that, obviously. So waves have a time, the frequency peaks out and then it rises and it falls, so it's about correspondence, it's about rhythm. So this can be related to the alchemical element of water. And just to kind of give the shapes, the geometry that goes along with these elements, air is an upward facing triangle with a line at the top, kind of like a pyramid with the all-seeing eye on the top. Earth is an inverted triangle with that line where the eye would be facing downward, and then the water is just the inverted triangle without the horizontal line there. And then the next one, which comes from music, is astronomy, which is a natural science that deals with the study of celestial objects such as stars, planets, comets, nebulas, galaxies, anything like this. And this kind of combines all 3 of the previous ones, so this is the arithmetic of time and space. And this deals with numbers, this deals with shapes, and this also deals with sounds, because of how we study stars and how we study the universe and things like that. We're always listening into the universe. So sound is a big part of astronomy. Now, this is the alchemical element of fire, which is a upward facing equilateral triangle with no line, no horizontal line in it. So, that's the basic breakdown of the 4 methodologies or 4 pathways to the quadrivium. Now, this can be related to something that, I like to call the law of manifestation, the way that we manifest things in our world. The trivium specifically can be related to this, and then the quadrivium applied to that. So, the true law of attraction is natural law. When we get into these things, we understand that natural law is the actual law of attraction, and the law of attraction that you might have found from The Secret or something like that is kind of a diluted version of the old Hermetic principles and just the objective understanding of natural law, or cause and effect, really, when it comes down to it. But there's one way we can look at this is kind of like building blocks of nature, building blocks of reality. And we could look at the bottom building block as knowledge, or that, or lack thereof. And this is about the available information. So this, constitutes potential knowledge that may be gathered, processed, understood, and acted upon by any individual, or any, sentient being or being that has the capacity to take in that type of knowledge. And then the next block would be understanding. And as you'll see, this relates directly to the trivium. And that understanding, you either have the understanding or you don't. So it's understanding or lack thereof. So this constitutes the decision-making process. So these processes take place in the human mind and are chosen by each individual based upon the available information, based upon what came before that. And then the next block would be wisdom, or lack thereof. So this is the actual behavior, the rhetoric that's being put out into manifestation or into the society. So each individual's behavior is based upon the quality of their decision-making process, which in turn is based upon the quality of their available information. And this is very important to understand, and this is why the trivium is so important, because it teaches us, not only about ourselves, but it also teaches us what we're doing with ourselves in reality, and what we're actually manifesting, and how to manifest better results by taking in better quality information and clearly processing that information to come to a correct application of that information that we have gathered. And then from that, we have the manifested result, or the generated result, which can tend to be very orderly or very chaotic. So the quality of the conditions which we manifest, in the aggregate of any society, in the aggregate of any community, or in the world, or in the universe, is based upon the quality of that, that information that we're taking in, and then based upon the quality of the decision-making process. And then it's also based upon the actual behavior that takes place, what is actually manifested from those things. So this is one way that you can apply the trivium and really understand the law of attraction. So, we get what we deserve based upon what we're putting into reality in the aggregate sense. So if we continue to put in things that are unhealthy, just like unhealthy food in the body, toxins, or unhealthy information, unhealthy knowledge and things like that that aren't doing us any good, trivial knowledge like we talked about before in the previous podcast, then the manifest result in society will be that which we deserve to get. It will be the effect of that causality. So, since we are currently putting in all this really crappy information, then we are getting a really crappy result in return, because that's what we're placing an order into nature as. So the way I like to explain this is we get to order, like in a restaurant, we place an order to a server, and the server returns to us what we ordered. And this isn't quite like where there's human free will within the server. This is more like a computer program. So when you place the information to the server returns with what you placed the order for. If you ordered something good, you will get exactly what you ordered, into the universe. So the universe returns to us exactly what we ordered. It serves us exactly the way that we sent the information into it, and then it returns to us what we ordered, just like in a restaurant, like I was saying, with a person who is actually serving you the food. So if you order a really, toxic meal from Burger King or from McDonald's or something like that, you're going to get exactly that result from that server and from that, franchise or that actual business. And with the universe, you're going to get the same thing. You place an order to the server, and then it returns to you what you have ordered. So what we're looking for is actually, what we could say is true order in our society. And I think it's a very important thing to understand that, because what we mean by order is just a state of non-coercion and a state of freedom. So the trivium and the quadrivium being applied properly can help us to not only maintain but achieve that state of freedom when it is correctly utilized by each individual that is capable of utilizing that in their society, and they are placing orders for actually good things to be returned to them through the law of cause and effect. So I think that's a great way of explaining that. Now, like Nate said before, there is the other part of this, which is, you have the trivium, which is the 3, and then you have the quadrivium, which is the 4, and then you have the 5 senses. So both of these, especially the trivium and the quadrivium, but the first thing that comes is the trivium, and then you use the quadrivium, is to actually align to that which is. So this is about understanding that which actually has taken place in reality and what is currently taking place in reality. So the way we do this is through our senses. And so you have the 5 senses. So this also relates back to the Pythagorean theorem and things of that nature, because when you might study this, you're going to find these 3 things in conjunction with each other with a right triangle. And that goes into some deeper mathematics that I hope people will be interested in, and maybe I will explain that in the future a little bit. But it's very important to understand that and how these things create a balance when you actually utilize them properly. But this leads us into what our next topic will be, which is, what are we trying to discover with these things? What are we trying to create? And what are we actually, seeking out to manifest into reality? And what do we want for ourselves from reality? What do we want to have served to us? And that is the first thing, that is being the first principle that we need, is the truth. The first thing we should be utilizing when we're trying to understand the trivium is understanding what the truth is, or what truth is. And from there, we can actually then start to build upon that truth and make a better reality. Because when we live in deceit and lies and in illusions is when we start to actually fall prey to manipulation, we fall prey to mind control and things like that. And we're not actually going to be in harmony with how we can meet the requirements of manifesting the conditions that we say we want. So from there, I think Nate might have a good little breakdown of what we're talking about when we say truth. And so I think that's where we should segue into that, if you're ready for that, Nate.
You really just broke it down very well. The trivium, the quadrivium, and right into truth, because that's exactly what those methodologies are for. So just to help people understand where they can find information like this, you can, there's a couple books that I really like. One is called The Trivium, of course, and the other one's Quadrivium. So you can find these on Amazon. They're like, I think $20 each or something, but they are filled with knowledge that's so helpful to understand how to get closer to truth. And something that I wanted to mention is that whenever, I come in contact with individuals who, where I end up, saying, trying to find truth, or I'm speaking about truth or whatever, some people have the attitude, that the belief that truth doesn't exist. And, obviously my comeback with that is that, especially when someone says truth definitely does not exist, I say, well, is that true? Of course, then they're stuck puzzled, and they don't have any idea how to say anything back to that, because the truth is that which is, and, truth is that which is. So that means that, to say that it doesn't exist, then that means you're definitely not telling the truth. So that's because, I understand, because, when I was younger, I didn't really believe that truth existed, because obviously, my whole life seemed to be a lie in so many ways. And, I was raised Catholic, and then in my teens, I transitioned to being more atheistic. So I knew that there was a lot of lies. I knew that there was something more. I knew that, but I also was just kind of throwing the whole baby out with the bathwater there for a second. Then I realized, like, oh wait, there's something here. There's something more. There's got to be more. And then, obviously I went on a journey and I started realizing there is truth. I just don't know. I just don't understand it. I knew it deep down that there was, just didn't understand what it was. But that's why I went on a journey. I went on an inward journey. I started to find methods of trying to understand how truth really is. And once I found out that, truth is something that has already happened and is happening at this very moment. Once I realized that truth is that it's objective, that it's not a subjective thing, then I realized, of course I questioned that, and I realized that, very soon I was met with the fact that it is everything that has happened, and that it's unwavering, that it's, truth has always been here and it always will be here. So, but, then I started to really try to put it in perspective. How can I really emphasize this to people? Because I know that truth is so hard to figure out, because it's like we're trying to get to truth. We're trying to get as close to truth as possible. That's really what it's about. And that's an abstract thing to say to people, But at the same time, it's like, well, what does an investigator do when they're trying to investigate a crime? They're trying to get as close to the truth as possible to know exactly what happened. So what do? They investigate, they do research, they try to find out what was the cause, what were the effects of that cause, who did this and who did that, and why did they do this and why did they do that? And then they get an eclectic view of why things are the way they are. And by doing that, using the trivium and the quadrivium methods in conjunction with each other, that's really how you're doing this. And one of the analogies that I like to use, something that I kind of came up with a while back was, and obviously I think I was inspired by understanding the round table, because I always tell people, if you take a cup or a chalice and you put it in the middle of a table, and you have, let's say, 10 people or 12 people sitting around the table, right? And I'm sitting on one side, and let's say you are sitting on the other side, and then between us we have the rest of the people, on each side. Well, if I am looking at that cup in the middle, just imagine you're looking at a cup in the middle of the table. You have a perspective of that cup, and I have a perspective of the other side of that cup, or one side of that cup. And then all the other people have their perspectives, right? So if you look at every single person as, let's say, a religion, right? Let's say you have the Christians on one side, you have the atheists on the other side, you have the Buddhists on one side, or maybe you have the Scientologists on one side, or whatever. Everybody has a piece of the truth. They have a piece of the puzzle. So everybody's perception is, obviously it's not the truth, but what they have is they have a piece of the truth. And so if you study their research or their viewpoints or their knowledge, then you start to get an eclectic view as you ask each one of those people around the round table what their perception is of that cup. Well, once you have made the rounds and you have asked each one of these people what their perception is, and you have taken that in and you have researched that and you have come to a conclusion, well, now you have reached a better understanding of what that cup is, and that cup represents truth. So you're getting closer and closer to seeing all sides of the truth, which means you're getting closer and closer to truth. And I think that that is a great way to explain to people how to seek and understand truth, because that cup itself is, you know, when you're trying to understand, the cup is that which is. If you're making an archetype of what, you know, truth is. So I'm also using the cup because the chalice, because it really is about understanding the Grail. So anyway,
That's a good stopping point here. I'm gonna take a little smoke break, get some snacks, might take the dogs out. Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that analogy of the knights, of the round table. And there's a great movie that they're gonna talk about in future episodes called a movie called King Arthur. I don't know if they've mentioned that. King Arthur by Guy Ritchie. I'm always talking. That movie is amazing. So I'm gonna take a little break here. I need to go through my inventory and sort out all my runes, so I'm gonna do that as well too. So hey, thanks for joining in. If you've made it this far, please stay tuned for part 2 of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Oh yeah.